Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with fortune cookies. That's right, I'm going to show you how to make your very own fortune cookies at home, which is a surprisingly simple operation. And not only is this an easy recipe that produces a very tasty, thin, crispy cookie, but it's also a lot of fun since we get to put any messages we want inside. I mean, the mind reels with possibilities. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And what we'll need to do before we start making our cookies is prepare our fortunes, which you're going to have to compose, print out, and then cut up into a size that will fit inside your cookie. And to make life easier, the smaller the better. So once I cut in between these, I'll probably also trim off a little bit from the ends. And traditionally, as the name might indicate, these are generally like some kind of prediction for the future. But nowadays, that's usually not the case. They tend to be more along the lines of deep thoughts or cryptic observations. For example, something like, no matter where you go, there you are. Or, a broken cookie will tell you nothing, but a broken heart will. So true. Or, learn from your mistakes, but maybe not so often. Okay, so you'll have to go ahead and create a bunch of those. And if you get stuck, just use some old Chinese restaurant classics, like you're about to embark on a great adventure, or this next year will bring you great fame and fortune, which are a little cliche, but at least they'll give your guests some false hope. And that's it. Once we have our fortunes done, we can move on to this extremely simple batter, which is going to consist of 1 egg white, which we will separate into this bowl. And by the way, unlike when we're making meringue, if you get a little bit of the yolk in this, you don't have to throw it out. It's going to be fine. And then to that we will add some white sugar, a little splash of milk. And by the way, I used almond milk, which is why it's not white. We will also do a little bit of pure real vanilla extract, as well as some almond extract. And if you want, some folks even put a little bit of sesame oil in this. We will also want to add a little pinch of salt. And then we'll finish up the wet ingredients with a little bit of melted butter. And we'll go ahead and take a whisk and give that a mix. And then once our mixture is nice and smooth, and we can feel that all that sugar's been dissolved, we will stop and add the last ingredient, some all-purpose flour. And we will go ahead and whisk that in to create a very, very soft, semi-runny, spreadable batter. And keep in mind, if this batter is too thin, your cookies will be very fragile and hard to work with. But we don't want it too thick either, because then we'll end up with just like a sugar cookie. So you're about to see the texture I like to go for. And it will be up to you to adjust with either a little more flour or a little more milk or water. I mean, you are, after all, the Confucius of your batter's looseness. So adjust if you have to, but ultimately you want to end up with something that looks and feels like this. And then once that's set, we'll go ahead and transfer on about a tablespoon or so onto a Silpat lined baking sheet. And we'll use the back of our spoon to spread that out nice and thin into a circle about 4 inches or so. And I'm just going to do 2 per pan for filming purposes. But once you get the swing of this, you could probably do 4 per pan. But anyway, we will spread that batter out into a circular shape as shown, making sure we knock down any larger peaks. And sometimes to help settle it, if you want to give it the old tappa-tappa, which is really more of a bang, and or a little shake, go ahead. But to be honest, I don't know if that does too much, although it does feel pretty good. And that's it. Our batter is now ready to transfer into the center of a 350-degree oven for about 10 minutes or so, or until 50 to 75% of the cookie is browned. At which point, pay attention because we have to move fast. And what we'll do with the help of a spatula is make sure that's loosened from the pan. And then we will place 1 fortune inside and fold it over exactly in half. Or at least attempt to. And then what we'll do is sort of press those edges together. And then somehow pick up the cookie and bend it directly in half on the edge of the pan. Sort of folding it like this. And then so it holds its shape while it cools, we're going to have to put it into some kind of ramekin or muffin tin. And you want to leave it there until it cools, at which point you can check out the final shape. Which, no, is not that good. All right, I'm not good at a lot of things, and one of them is fortune cookie forming. But for our first one, that is not bad. And you'll see, you'll get a lot better at these as you do them. Okay, so let's move to the next one, which, because I took so long with the first one and was moving the camera and stuff, is now too stiff to fold because it's cooled. But what we can do is pop that back into the oven for a few minutes until it softens up again, at which point we should be able to shape it. Okay, so we'll place our fortune in, and we'll fold it over, and kind of press those edges together the best we can, and then we'll bend it over the edge of the pan, Oh, and as we're folding this, we're trying to get that outside edge to kind of curl up a little bit so that we get more of that signature fortune cookie shape. So that one was a little better. Still not great, but pretty good. And that's it. We will simply continue on until our batter's gone. And like I said, the more you do, the better you get. And as far as portioning goes, a 1 egg white recipe, which is what we did, will make between 10 and 12 fortune cookies depending on the size, which should easily cover your average dinner party. And as I mentioned, once you bend that on the edge of the pan, you sort of want to try to get those outside edges to curl up a little to form sort of a brim, which will definitely make these look a little better and more authentic. And by the way, if you're wondering if this is kind of painful and I'm burning the tips of my fingers, yes, a little bit. But I have fairly callous fingers, so it really wasn't that bad. But if you don't, feel free to use some gloves. And by the way, don't be in a big hurry to pull those out and see your shape. Or let them cool, because if you pull them out when they're still warm, they're going to kind of spread open. So be sure to let those cool before you pull them out. And again, if you don't have this size ramekin, just a good old-fashioned muffin tin will work the same. And that's it. Before you know it, you're going to have a beautiful plate of homemade fortune cookies, which are now ready to crack open so they can reveal their words of wisdom. So let's go ahead and see what this one says. Sink your teeth into the ass of life and drag it to you. Now that, my friends, is some great advice. And yes, in case you're wondering, that is from the movie Big Night. And above and beyond the valuable life coaching these can provide, you've also made a very delicious sweet crispy sugar cookie, which is never not a great way to end a meal, especially a great big spread of homemade Chinese food, or at least our take on it. But anyway, let me go ahead and open one more before we finish. Whoops, I just tore the fortune in half. That can't be good. And now the other piece is stuck to the fold. So this one did not go as planned. And what was the fortune? Of course, the one about learning from your mistakes. Well played, universe. Well played. But anyway, that's it. How to make your own homemade fortune cookies. I mean, just imagine putting a plate of these out after a big Chinese-inspired feast. I mean, your guests will be like, wow, you are so creative, and seem to have a lot of free time on your hands. But whether you're doing this to impress some dinner party guests, or you've wanted to propose to somebody and just couldn't figure out the right way to do it, yes, an engagement ring will fit in these perfectly. But no matter what the reason or your message, I really do hope you give these a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.